When it comes to implosions, the odds never favor the house. In Las Vegas, developers roll the dice building bigger, better, and brighter. In just 8 years, 7 old casinos go out with a big bang on Exploding Las Vegas. The Dunes Hotel Casino, the Landmark, the Sands, the Hacienda, the Aladdin, the El Rancho, the Desert Inn. 7 famous Las Vegas hotels imploded in seconds with dynamite, fireworks, and pyrotechnics. Using science and technology, demolition companies bring down old casinos to make way for the new. Las Vegas is the implosion capital of the world.
We're celebrating change, we're celebrating hope, we're celebrating the future when we implode a building. And so in that sense, it is more of an event here than it is almost anywhere else.
I think probably for a lot of the casino owners in Las Vegas, implosion is the preferred method of demolition because it's a lot quicker.
Implosions, a method of demolition that collapses a building onto itself, have become a way of life in the original Sin City. Just ask the mayor.
You know, the implosion of these wonderful casinos and hotels really is part of the way we do business here.
Or ask the president of Controlled Demolition Incorporated, the only company to implode hotel casinos on the Strip.
Things happen at warp speed there because time is money, as that industry knows, literally.
Controlled Demolition Incorporated, or CDI, is a world-renowned explosives engineering firm. Mark's daughter, Stacy, works on all the Las Vegas projects.
The town never sleeps, it never stops. Construction schedules never sleep, they never stop.
In a town as party-driven as Las Vegas, implosions are the biggest party of all. In less than 10 years, 7 of the original glamorous hotel casinos have gone down in smoke, paving the way for a spectacular new Vegas. CDI engineers every one of their final performances. Doug Loazzo is vice president of CDI.
Las Vegas is different than every other city in the world. From a demolition standpoint, it's different. Number one, you can't tolerate, the disruption. They're vying to get as many gamblers as they can.
Since its birth a century ago, Las Vegas has come a long way from its days as a remote mining town. The post-World War II days attracted such notables as gangster Bugsy Siegel, Murder Incorporated, and the glitzy, star-studded Rat Pack.
You saw celebrities everywhere. They played here, they partied here. The pinnacle of that, of course, was the Rat Pack in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And it was just a sense of real cachet, of real cool to the place.
The bawdy, gaudy town of vice, gambling, and sexy showgirls seems indifferent to the preservation of its colorful past. The old Las Vegas of the 1950s and 60s is gone, forever. In its place is a new boomtown, which makes real estate the biggest prize of all.
We're not interested in the past here, and we're really not interested in the present. Las Vegas is about the future. It never is, it's always about becoming.
Entrepreneur Steve Wynn continues to reinvent Las Vegas glamour. He built the Mirage in the 1990s, then topped it with the $1.6 billion Bellagio. His next project, Wynn Las Vegas, will be the most luxurious and most expensive casino he's ever built, at a cost of $2.5 billion. When the casino mogul decided to destroy the Dunes Hotel and Casino in 1993, he set the tone for the way hotels were torn down in Las Vegas. The Dunes Hotel and Casino opened in 1955 as the 10th resort on the famed Vegas Strip. Located at Flamingo Road and Las Vegas Boulevard, it became a celebrity hotspot for stars such as Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett, and it was rumored to be run by the mob.
Well, the Dunes is one of the original Las Vegas casinos, and it was, of course, mobbed up at its core. It had one of the longest involvements with the mob in Las Vegas history. By the time it was imploded, it had really fallen off the landscape. It had fallen down the ladder and had become sort of a kind of a dump.
By the late 1980s, the Dunes suffers from serious financial troubles. In 1992, Wynn buys the failing property. He immediately decides to demolish it to make way for a new, one-of-a-kind mega resort.
The Dunes North Tower was our first major project in Las Vegas.
CDI, the legendary company which has imploded more than 7,000 structures, engineers the implosion of the dunes. Their special blend of science and technology is critical to their success. For the Dunes project, Mark decided to put his daughter Stacy in charge. She was only 22.
When my father told me that I would be managing the project, you know, heavy gulp, heavy sigh, okay, I think I can handle this. Boy, I didn't know what I was getting into.
We were saying, we believe you can do it. Doug felt she could do it. We knew she could do it. She wasn't quite sure she could do it.
The demolition soon becomes an engineering nightmare for CDI. Steve Wynn wants the Dunes implosion to coincide with the grand opening of Treasure Island, his new hotel casino a mile away. He envisions a massive fireworks show, an implosion marked by giant explosions.
One of the big challenges for us at the Dunes was trying to marry two systems, basically marrying a pyrotechnic system and a structural explosive system. We'd never done it.
To create Steve Wynn's blockbuster pyrotechnics show, it would require that CDI use 460 gallons of aviation fuel to generate massive fireballs.
A big problem with using aviation fuel is that it eats through pretty much any material, so that it couldn't sit there for more than 36 hours before it started eating through the bag itself. They're all much more sensitive materials than anything we would ever use for structural demolition purposes. We had a very heightened sense of caution happening throughout that entire project.
CDI removes interior walls on several lower floors and plants 365 pounds of explosives and 300 special effects charges. Crews design a $1 million fireworks display, a 6-minute show that is billed as the largest of its kind in the western United States.
If you start shooting fireworks up in there, people will gather. People will come. It's like putting the most incredible spotlight in the world above something.
The Dunes Hotel Casino is set for implosion on the evening of October 27, 1993. The main plan of action calls for Steve Wynn to command the captain of the ship at Treasure Island to fire its cannon, beginning the entire event.
Captain of the Britannia, prepare broadside. Ready, aim, fire!
The cannonball flies over and hits the Dunes Hotel, and a series of fireballs is initiated from that cannon shot, which then starts a chain reaction in the building of the flash pots going off, which then starts another chain reaction of fireballs sweeping the building.
The 22-story Dunes is reduced to a pile of dust and debris in less than 10 seconds. 250,000 spectators witnessed the destruction of the Dunes.
That flash you saw there was the initiation sequence. Then what Stacy envisioned was just a series of titanium salutes going up. These are the bright flashes, followed by tiers of fireballs going up, just hundreds of gallons of aviation fuel. And this is the 27th of October. What better thing to have than a 20-story plus jack-o'-lantern stand for a minute with our sequence, and then we let the building come down after that.
It was the most incredible visual thing I've ever seen in my life, and I don't think I'll ever see it again.
I think that'll stand for a long time as one of the most spectacular ever.
After 5 years, and at a cost of $1.6 billion, the elegant 3,000-room Bellagio resort opens on the former site of the Dunes. It's one of the most expensive hotels in Las Vegas. A new era of Las Vegas glamour is ushered in when dynamite pulverizes the hotel in a dramatic, fiery implosion. But could the next implosion top the Dunes? Exploding Las Vegas will return in a moment. Now, back to Thrill Zone. Las Vegas is known as the entertainment capital of the world, but it's also the implosion capital of the world. Once the Dunes Hotel Casino is destroyed, it sets a fast pace for an explosive future on the Las Vegas Strip.
Everything that happens here is exciting. And so when buildings have been imploded, they've made them events.
Las Vegas is Las Vegas. Everything is bigger, better, and brighter.
Building bigger, better resorts is the name of the game in Las Vegas. Along with the new construction, there is destruction. The demolition of old casinos to make room for more modern versions. When it comes time to implode, Controlled Demolition Incorporated has been the only company called in to take them out. And everything in Vegas, including implosions, is bigger than life.
Everyone going there has expectations that are beyond normal life, and implosion is just one of those things that you don't see every day. When they party in Vegas, they know how to party.
After the Dunes Hotel, the futuristic Landmark Hotel and Casino would be next on the chopping block. The space-age structure had a date with demolition on November 7, 1995. Hollywood director Tim Burton wanted to use it for his movie Mars Attacks, and the Landmark would be the second tallest building in the world to be imploded.
The Landmark was another failure. A common thread here of all the hotels that were imploded. As far as being a commercial success, the Landmark never made it.
The 31-story casino had opened in 1969. Eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes, who built the largest airplane ever, turned his sights on Las Vegas, and he built the Landmark, the most unusual structure on the Strip.
The Landmark structure, I think, was a function of the guy who had it built. Howard Hughes was different. He had a different perspective, and I think that also was reflected in structures.
Howard Hughes's private apartment was located at the top of this unique 365-foot structure. It was the first high-rise hotel in Las Vegas and the tallest building in town.
The Landmark was right in the center of the entire community, and we used to go up to the top of the Landmark and would be able to see over the entire valley.
The Landmark was located 1 block off the Strip. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority buys the Landmark in 1990, not for a new casino, but to build a parking lot for the convention center. CDI must figure out a way to topple the UFO-like structure.
It was a structure that didn't want to cooperate. It was tall. It was slender. The comment, the taller they are, the harder they fall. Sometimes the harder it is to make them fall where you want them to, or when you want them to.
Hollywood soon catches wind of the Landmark's demolition, and producers want in on the action. The implosion would play a starring role in the film Mars Attacks, directed by Tim Burton, and that compounded the challenge.
Anytime you involve a major motion picture, you're lengthening every process. Tim Burton sort of had an ongoing love affair with the Landmark. As soon as he heard that it was slated for demolition, he knew that he wanted to use it in one of his films.
The Landmark is an unusual structure that calls for an equally unusual demolition plan. CDI devises a plan to strip the interior of the tower down to its bare bones. They also remove all non-load-bearing walls on the first 4 floors on one side, creating a plane of weakness in the front section that would force the tower to split in half.
It didn't want to do what we wanted it to do, and we had to trick it. We had to fool it. We had to do something to make it cooperate. We added a couple of cables right at the end to help tug it along between the front section and the back section, and we just relied on gravity.
The next dilemma involves dynamite. If CDI loads too much, they risk blowing out all the columns and elevator shafts, which would topple the Landmark over into a busy street. Instead, they pack 100 pounds of dynamite, placing it strategically throughout the bottom 4 floors.
The problem we had with these 4 elevator shafts that weren't tied together meant that we couldn't use too much explosives to totally release the front half and let them rip away from the back. We had to just get it slowly pulling. And we tried to tell everybody, this is going to be really slow. No, it's going to be slower than that. A little slower yet, slow.
The final shot of the film involves a pyrotechnic sequence that had to be timed perfectly for the big screen.
Tim Burton's idea was that a spacecraft was going to fire a laser beam at the base of the structure and it was going to fall over. So essentially, we just had to create some sparking effect.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The Landmark Hotel and Casino collapses into a 150-foot cloud of dust, all within 12 short seconds.
Here you see the special effects show the hit from the laser at the base of the structure, and the front shears away as the structure starts to move, and it's almost going to make your heart stop because it looks as though the back is going to stay there and maybe even go backwards.
When we shot the front of the elevator core, it went into a shear, which means that whole front of the elevator core just went and dropped. It just sheared right straight down. Then it very, very slowly failed the rest of the way over.
While the Landmark may be the most unique structure ever imploded in Las Vegas, the Sands would be one of the most famous and historic. In 1996, when the 17-story structure imploded, it marked the end of a Vegas legend. More than any other Las Vegas hotel and casino in the 1950s and 60s, the Sands was a symbol of everything the town had to offer. It was the 7th resort on the Strip, and soon the biggest names in show business headlined there. It was also home to the famous Rat Pack. The Sands underwent several renovations, but by the late 1980s, it was showing its age and was no longer attracting big crowds. Though the Sands was one of Vegas's original major casinos, implosion won out over preservation. And it posed one of the biggest obstacles CDI had ever seen.
It had easily more than 4 times the reinforcing in it, more than 4 times the reinforcing for a structure of that size, of that utility. It had no reason to be built the way that it was. We could not get a single hole drilled in a column at ground level and mezzanine level. We couldn't get through the rebar. It was side-by-side rebar, as big as my wrist. It was just huge.
When CDI conducts preliminary test blasts, they barely blow away any concrete. The columns prove virtually unbreakable. Some claim it had been built by the Mafia for the Mafia.
We don't know the engineers, the architects, the design people that personally design the Sands, but my guess would be, you know, when the Mafia hires you to build a building, you're going to be darn sure it doesn't fall over. So they used about 4 times as much reinforcing in that building as they needed. It was bomb-proof.
The demolition team loads the hotel with twice as much dynamite as they initially planned. Because the property owner is eager to begin construction on the new Venetian Hotel Casino, time is critical. It takes CDI only 2 weeks to prep the Sands for implosion.
We had to hustle and brought in hydraulic excavators with hydraulic hammers, chipping away the concrete. We were burning away the steel so we could drill the holes so we could get the explosives in. But that just makes it more fun. You know, if everything goes as planned, it's kind of boring.
The Vegas icon collapses into a 30-foot pile of rubble in just 7 seconds.
The Sands Tower was a tough reinforced concrete structure, a pillbox of construction, so to speak. And what we did was do most of our work on the far side of the building. Las Vegas Boulevard is out here, and we're leaving the low-profile structure, the casino structure, here to help control dust, and taking the building itself and tilting it away from the Strip.
The $1.5 billion Venetian Hotel and Casino now sits in its place. It took 2 years to create this 35-story, 6 million square foot complex. As for the Sands, all that's left are memories. Even though many were opposed to the destruction, the consensus is that the elaborate Venetian hotel is an even bigger hit.
The Sands, the most iconic Las Vegas landmark of all, was imploded to make room for an homage to Italy called the Venetian. It's fantastically successful, and from a financial standpoint, nobody can question why it was done. If it was to happen today, more people might question it and say, hey, why are we tearing down the Sands, you know, the place where the Rat Pack played?
Both the landmark and the Sands are now history. They were imploded without any fanfare. But Vegas was in for a special party when the Hacienda Hotel was set for implosion on New Year's Eve, 1996. Millions would watch the spectacle from the streets and live on television. More exploding Las Vegas when we return. You're watching Thrill Zone. There's nothing like New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. In 1996, the city was set to ring in the new year with a real bang. After the implosions of the Dunes Casino, the Sands, and the Landmark, the Hacienda Hotel was next. But this one would be imploded live on television, and millions would watch.
It was not one of the ones that people felt real bad about, like the way they felt a real kind of tragedy almost about the Dunes or the Sands. The Hacienda was always at the south end of the Strip. It was always kind of a second-tier place.
In 1956, the Hacienda, boasting a unique Spanish theme, opened with 266 rooms on the southernmost tip of the Las Vegas Strip. But by 1995, the Hacienda couldn't keep up with the newest competition on the Strip. It was purchased for $80 million. The plan was to demolish and create another new mega resort in its place. This implosion would be unusual for many reasons.
We found out that one wing of it was only 7 years old. And we thought, what a waste of money. You've just refurbished this entire wing of a structure. Now you want to implode it? This doesn't make any sense. But they were making way for what is now the very magnificent Mandalay Bay. And that property was quite valuable. So they wanted the Hacienda down, gone, out as quickly as possible.
Typically, CDI crews get at least 6 months advance notice before an implosion. But this time, they have the unheard of turnaround time of just 1 month.
When they called us in the Hacienda and said, we're giving you a 30-day window from the day the last guest walks out of this hotel to when it has to hit the ground. Whew, that's quick.
Creating an even bigger challenge, property owners want to make its destruction a major televised event for New Year's Eve 1996. It would compete with the dropping of the famous ball in New York City's Times Square at midnight, East Coast time. But that, of course, would be 9 p.m. Las Vegas time, a very Vegas idea that made CDI very worried.
So when they told me this for the Hacienda, I thought, you people are crazy. First of all, we can't guarantee it's going to happen exactly when we say it's going to happen because we're not going to do anything unsafe. And if there's someone too close, or if there's a vehicle too close, or whatever the case may be, we're not going to go. That's okay, we'll wait too. And I'm thinking, oh, you could be waiting an hour on live television, depending on the circumstances.
CDI must quickly and accurately design an implosion that will destroy the heavily reinforced concrete structure.
All the walls, the bathroom walls, the closet walls, the hallway walls, everything was reinforced. It did not want to fall down. It wanted to squat. It wanted to just come straight down and stop, which would have been an embarrassment for everybody.
But a crucial mistake occurs just a few days before implosion preparations are set to begin.
The salvage crews that had gone in there to salvage the chillers, the air conditioning units and things, had knocked out walls down by the south stairwell. And they had taken out walls that we had planned on using.
A lot of times people don't understand that we need the building's strength intact in order to control it properly. We went to our client and said, we have a problem. We can no longer guarantee that that southern stairwell will fall.
CDI determines the Hacienda would require more than 1,000 pounds of explosives, about 3 times more than the Dunes Casino, and nearly 10 times more than the Landmark. With the New Year's Eve deadline quickly approaching, crews had to work fast. The wild card would be the addition of a fireworks show. and an exact implosion at 9 p.m. Hundreds of pyrotechnic devices in the windows would ignite a giant wall of flame, followed by a 150-foot fireball to punctuate the extravaganza. If something goes wrong, it will be disastrous. As time ticks away, crews work right up to the wire. On New Year's Eve, 500,000 people fill the streets of Las Vegas to celebrate the event. With TV cameras rolling, the fireworks begin. Everything happens within 8 seconds, and it happens exactly at midnight East Coast time. But when the dust cleared, one defiant part of the hacienda remained standing.
Didn't fall. But we knew it wouldn't fall.
I think one of the writers for the Las Vegas Journal called it the headstone, and someone wanted to know what they were going to write on the headstone for one more to bite the dust under the Loazo's hand in Las Vegas.
The southern stairwell was taken down by conventional means the following day. Mandalay Bay now sits in its place. It's a billion-dollar complex on 62 acres. One of the best views of the Strip can be seen from the hotel's top floor.
Mandalay Bay has become the hottest property on the Strip. It's really an exceptional place. Might be the best place on the Strip.
Today, the only reminder of the hacienda is its famous neon cowboy sign that now welcomes visitors to downtown Las Vegas. But the hotel's last performance on New Year's Eve 1996 went down in Vegas history. It spelled the end of an era. But it wouldn't be the end of Las Vegas implosions. 2 more of the Strip's original casinos would perform their own grand finale in the months to come. And during one implosion, CDI learned shocking new information. For the first time ever, crews plant video cameras inside the structure to find out what really happens as it crumbles to the ground. It will forever change the way CDI will approach demolitions. Exploding Las Vegas will be right back. Exploding Las Vegas continues now on Thrill Zone. Las Vegas is like no other place on the planet. The town changes so fast, its history can hardly keep up. The old Vegas of the 1950s and 60s, where the Rat Pack played and Elvis stayed, is gone forever. Today, giant mega resorts stand in its place. Nowhere else is such a rich history, only a state of mind.
Las Vegas is really the implosion capital, and it's because, in essence, we consume our past here. So in that sense, history isn't important here. It is, but it isn't.
In the fast-paced, ever-changing world of Las Vegas, old desert dreams turn to demolition dust.
The reason that we knock down these beautiful buildings that have great historic value is to be able to stay ahead of the curve, to reinvent ourselves, to be at the cutting edge.
Nothing is fixed. Nothing is traditional. Nothing is standard. Everything is, well, good morning, Las Vegas. Let's do something different today.
The Hacienda Hotel was imploded on New Year's Eve, and 2 years later, the Aladdin is next, and CDI will discover shocking information from video cameras planted inside during the actual implosion.
It was never a big hit. It was a place that did have its history, and it lasted a long time, but it was always kind of a black sheep on the Strip.
The Aladdin first opened in 1963 as the Tally Ho Hotel, but without a casino or much success. The property was purchased in 1966, renamed the Aladdin, and millions were spent giving it an Arabian-style facelift. But once again, the Aladdin didn't hit the jackpot with the crowds. It always seemed to hold the losing hand.
The Aladdin is the saddest lady on the Strip. It's where Elvis and Priscilla married, and it's a property that never really quite made it. It was in receivership a number of times. Its ownership groups fell apart and couldn't afford it, and it was really the one that just never quite managed to get over the top.
After years of changing ownership and falling short, The hotel finally closes its doors in 1997. CDI is charged with granting the Aladdin's final wish.
The Aladdin was difficult. It was different. It had very large clear span areas in the first few floors. The casino literally passed through the lobby of the hotel, which is unusual.
The 21-story high Aladdin is supported by massive beams that span the lobby and casino area. After analyzing the supporting columns, crews discover they're dealing with an irregular type of reinforced concrete, not typically used in casinos.
It's just hard stuff to blast. It's hard to work with efficiently. It's also hard to apply explosives to it because it has planes of weakness in it where the concrete block walls are. Then they put hard concrete grout in the center and they jam rebar inside the openings in the concrete block.
The crews are forced to use 232 pounds of dynamite to blast through the thick columns. That's nearly 4 times more than initially planned. Explosives are placed in more than 800 different locations. Walls on the lower floors are removed to help collapse the building.
The Aladdin was pretty flimsy. It wasn't a very stout structure. During preparation, when we were using heavy machinery on the lower floors, when you were working upstairs, you were very aware that there were big machines working below you. You could feel the whole building rocking and rolling.
The key would be the detonation sequence, a series of 14 delayed explosions timed just right to make the building fall exactly where they wanted. Finally, it's wired and ready to go.
All right, Mark, I'm in the red. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fire.
When you look at footage of the Aladdin, it's interesting because the Aladdin looks very much like it's melting.
It was like a wave. It's like the people in the stands at the ballpark going around in the wave. That's what everybody watched because your eye goes to the top of the building. And it was just a very simple flowing of the structure.
Just as CDI had planned, the Aladdin collapses onto itself.
It looks as though the whole structure is almost moving at once. Actually, we're taking out the legs of the table underneath. And then you'll see the section on the far right-hand side pull inward away from a development that they wanted to keep. All in all, it's a fairly simple sequence that just makes the building almost stitch appear as if by magic.
But what does magically appear to the demolition crew is a whole new view of the implosion. When a local TV crew decides to mount closed-circuit cameras inside during the actual event, CDI discovers something that would forever change the way they would approach the demolition process.
Boy, did we learn a lot about exactly what happens in one of our buildings as it's coming down. They had some very telling shots showing a lot of materials moving in directions we didn't want them moving, and we didn't realize that this was going on because obviously no one's in the building when it's actually coming down. So we learned a tremendous amount by watching this closed-circuit footage of the actual initiation system detonating, and totally reworked our system after that.
Two years after the demolition, the new $1.4 billion Aladdin Hotel and Resort reopened. But in the city that never sleeps, neither does the construction and destruction. Preparations for the implosion of another hotel several blocks north on the Strip are already in the works. After more than a half a century, the El Rancho Hotel and Casino's time had finally come.
It was really a decrepit, falling apart property, and its implosion was foreordained. It was going to happen. It was going to be removed. There wasn't enough money in the world to rebuild the place.
Like the Aladdin, the El Rancho experienced several facelifts over the years. When it opened in 1948, it was one of the first gambling casinos and roadside motels in Vegas. In the beginning, it was called the Thunderbird, and in 1982, the El Rancho. By reputation, the El Rancho was unattractive to high rollers and unable to keep up with the sizzling competition on the Strip. By July 1992, its luck ran out, and the casino went out of business. It sat empty for 8 years, boarded up, an eyesore on the north end of the Strip.
The El Rancho is kind of an irony because the one building that everybody would have liked to see imploded held on for years and years and years. It sat there empty, and security guards were only there to keep vagrants out of it.
Turnberry Associates bought the El Rancho in the year 2000. The Florida-based development company had plans to construct a high-end $600 million condominium complex adjacent to the site. The company had a lot at stake.
We're developing what we consider to be the highest possible quality lifestyle here. That was not the type of neighbor that we thought was conducive to what we're developing.
A few months after Turnberry bought the property, CDI began preparations for imploding the old El Rancho.
The building was, in a town like Vegas, it's a good analogy, a house of cards. It just wanted to fall down. The fact that it had been vacant for a long time, and the fact that it had been in what I would call a fairly advanced state of disrepair. There were structural considerations because of lack of maintenance that created problems for us.
But the biggest concern had nothing to do with the El Rancho's construction. It had to do with the Algiers bar that's right next door.
The El Rancho, I think, was not even a street's width, maybe 12 feet, to a little bar called the Algiers.
When I first got to the job site, I went, oh, I totally forgot that building was there. There was nothing else around it to hurt, but this building was very, very close.
CDI's strategy is to pull the 13-story hotel away from the very close Algiers bar. This required hundreds of feet of cable strung around the southernmost wall of the El Rancho. For 2 weeks, crews place about 700 pounds of dynamite inside holes drilled in the support columns. The implosion takes place at 2:30 in the morning. A crowd of 2,000 gathers to watch the last show at the El Rancho, including Algiers bartender Rita Moreland.
The owner of the bar got us all a suite at the top of the Riviera, and we watched it. They closed down the whole bar. They came in, they covered up everything, they imploded it, and it was just awesome.
3, 2, 1, fire.
You'll see orange flashes initiating the blasting caps inside the structure. Then, as the timing moves forward, you'll see the structure start to fall in this area, tilting this one stairwell in from the right-hand side. It walks across, and watch the upper corner. You can see it start to move down and then rotate in so the debris doesn't pile up and flow back into the structure behind it.
In slow motion, the wall of the El Rancho Hotel had in fact pulled away from the Algiers, leaving the old bar untouched.
Actually, we thought it wasn't going to come down because it went pop, 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 and then nothing happened. And then all of a sudden it just boom to the ground. We came down here and we checked everything to make sure there was no damage. We opened the bar and business carried on.
The implosion of the El Rancho cleared the way for further development at the Turnberry Place condominium complex. From the rundown El Rancho to the upscale Turnberry condos, the Vegas skyline had changed overnight. Unlike the El Rancho, the Desert Inn was one of the most famous casinos in Vegas history. Decades after its heyday, it too would succumb to the plans of real estate developers, who were always trying to top themselves in the game of creating the most expensive and luxurious resorts in town. And now, the conclusion of Exploding Las Vegas. Las Vegas is always reinventing itself. In the 1950s, a building boom created some of the most famous casinos ever constructed. Today, a different kind of building boom is taking over, when casinos come crashing down.
And Las Vegas's identity is always changing. And when you tear down the past, what you do is, in essence, reinvent that identity. You give yourself a new shape, a new form. And that ability to shift shape is what makes Las Vegas the first wonder of the postmodern world.
The Desert Inn is one of the most well-known casinos in the town's history. But the year 2001 would mark the final spectacular moment of this Las Vegas institution.
By the time the Desert Inn was imploded, there wasn't much left of the original Desert Inn anyway. All the original hotel rooms had already been torn down. Most of the main casino had been torn down.
Wilbur Clark developed the Desert Inn and opened it in 1950. It was the fifth hotel on Las Vegas Boulevard. The Desert Inn quickly earned a reputation for being the Strip's classiest and most upscale hotel. From the beginning, it attracted a star-studded crowd.
The Desert Inn was one of the original places on the Strip. It was the first place Frank Sinatra played in 1951. It was next to the Sands. It probably had the most history tied up in it.
Besides Old Blue Eyes, the Desert Inn showcased other top celebrities of the time, such as Zsa Zsa Gabor, Bing Crosby, and Bob Hope. It was also the first resort on the Strip to have an 18-hole golf course. Jimmy Durante played in the famous Tournament of Champions there. In 1966, Howard Hughes moved into the penthouse. When the hotel tried to evict him, Howard Hughes bought it. But the hotel's luster and star power diminished over the years. Like the other older hotels, the Desert Inn also had financial problems. The property was bought in 2000 for $270 million. Its fate was in the cards.
It too found itself competing against bigger entities that could offer many, many more features. In fact, it was built on a scale that was too small to compete for the space that it had on the Strip.
The owner of the property wants to revamp part of the hotel in typical Las Vegas fashion. The fastest way to do that is to implode it.
He told us, well, I've got several structures here that need to come down, but I only want you to take one down, and it happens to be touching one, attached to one, that I want to keep. Is that okay?
The Desert Inn basically consists of 3 large structures, but the owner wants CDI only to take down the 15-story, 300-room Augusta Tower, not the other 2 structures. That makes it even more complicated.
The first phase was problematic in that it was touching the portion of the building that they wanted to retain, and we had to physically, make separations and pull the portion of the building away from an existing elevator shaft that was going to be reused.
Further analysis of the tower reveals other demolition challenges.
The interesting thing about this structure was post-tensioned, which means that you had high-strength tendons cranked really tightly like piano wire with an anchor at the end, and if you release these too quickly or cut that cable, that anchor can fly even a couple of 100 feet and go through the building next door.
We've got Tuesday night to load, Wednesday night to load, Thursday.
For CDI crews, the key is detailed prep work. If the dynamite explodes in the wrong sequence, the tower would collapse the wrong way and destroy the adjacent building.
It was tough. It was probably the most difficult task behind the Landmark Tower that we've approached in Las Vegas.
Unlike the Landmark's implosion, the Desert Inn's would be a low-key event without any film crews or fireworks. It would take place at 2 in the morning. CDI packs the building with 250 pounds of dynamite that are set to go off in a series of 8 blasts. Another piece of Vegas history collapses like a house of cards.
This angle of the Augusta implosion shows just the proximity of the 2 buildings. These are actually touching at this point. The initiation system not only moves from left to right, but also from the bottom to the top. The actual demolition sequence starts on the left-hand side, and notice how everything moves very quickly, and the job is to translate it into what we call rotational moment, or bending away from the structure to remain without damage.
For the 7th time in 8 years, a piece of old Las Vegas is imploded into history. It spelled the end of an era. The $2.5 billion Wynn Las Vegas now sits on the site of the old Desert Inn. With its 42 stories and 2,700 rooms, the Wynn Las Vegas is a spectacular new addition to the ever-changing skyline of Las Vegas.
Las Vegas is sort of this canvas where, we knock things down and start over again, and it's not a city with any kind of permanence.
Within 50 years, Las Vegas has become a different kind of Vegas, from motel casinos to fantasy mega resorts. As for the future, nothing is sacred, with the implosions of the dunes, the landmark, the sands, the hacienda, the Aladdin, the El Rancho, and the Desert Inn. Every hotel is fair game for an implosion.
Frontier and the Stardust are more than possible candidates for implosion. They're very likely. Other candidates are maybe the Riviera and maybe Circus Circus.
In a city where time is money and money is no object, Las Vegas will continue to be a work in progress and the implosion capital of the world.
I think that if you left Las Vegas for 2 years and you came back, you really wouldn't be able to find your way around. The only thing that will stop us from going on and on and on is our own imagination.
The imaginations of resort developers will continue to drive the future of the city, and the art and allure of an implosion will remain a part of Las Vegas, like the lights on the Strip and the sound of the roulette wheel. You can bet on it.